Hello and welcome to Hidden Existence. I hope everybody's doing all right out there tonight. We've got a fantastic guest all the way from a beautiful place to be in Ireland. My guest tonight is the keeper and owner of a very magical site. It's called Green Hills Farm in Kinconnell in County
Kilconnell.
Galway. Kilconnell, thank you, Pat. But on this site, you've got a cairn, a fairy fort, a lake, sacred springs, standing stones, fertility stones, much more. My guest tonight is Pat Noone. Thank you, Pat, for joining me.
No problem. If I can help you in any way, I will.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you staying up late because I know what it's like being a farmer. Well, I don't know what it's like being a farmer, but I can imagine you like to get up at the crack of dawn if you can.
Well, not too bad now for the last few nights. I hadn't to get well. I had a mare that fall last night. All right. I just missed her. I looked at her at 1 o'clock, but the guests I had here staying in the house from Belfast had seen her fallen.
Right. Okay.
So I was lucky enough.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me about the place you're at. I mean, there's a lot of history there, going back a lot of years. How did you come across to be there?
Well, it's our family farm. So I had no other choice only to be here. It's a kind of I'm a traditional farmer. I suppose I farm the old style with different breeds of livestock here, a few horses, a few sheep, a few cows, and pigs, and a few different things. I'm not your modern farmer, you know.
Mm-hmm. The old style.
The old style, I keep it a kind of the old style. I keep the land a kind of leave it the way it is, and just do me daily tasks. That's the way it is, you know.
Yeah, I understand. So, how did you discover all the magical stuff that's going on the land? Is it something that has always been there and has just been passed through the
Always
family?
been, yeah, always been there and just passed down as normal stuff to us. And I suppose in the last few years, it has really come to light with people, you know. But before that, it was all localized within 10, 5, 15 miles, you know. But now
Mm-hmm.
there's people coming from as far away as your own country, England, here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's lots going on there. I shared one of your pictures before. This is a cairn you're on. Well, what's
This is a
the?
cairn.
Yeah.
This is a cairn, and I suppose this is a sacred place of a burial chamber and that of an Irish chieftain. But we'll just step back a bit around that cairn where the railway was put through the fairy field in 1840s, and they found 7 halberd swords in it, stuck down in a ritual forum. So they
Wow.
knew that this was a big Celtic settlement area as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they were put down as, I suppose, human sacrifice at the time was the name of the game, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
that cairn is probably connected with the Celts, or the Celts had actually taken it over from the ancient Irish that was there before them. Because beside that, there's another hill with a tunnel in it, and it's as old as Newgrange or Stonehenge or older. And it's just an ordinary now looking hill. It's nothing major to look at. Whereas the cairn is a kind of an outstanding piece of a hill, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely know it's not a natural form of the land.
No, it was man-made. It was man-made, so it was.
Yeah. So how old is that? Did you say?
3 to 4 thousand years old.
Wow. What? So what's the? I know there's a big fairy connection. So what is the fairy connection? And then
Well,
maybe we can spread out a little bit more about what's going on the land.
right. Well, I'll just give you a little rundown. In that field where the cairn is, there is a porthole to the fairy world where the black thorn meets the white thorn. The fairies appeared to me on a lot of occasions there, but they have appeared to other people. There isn't too many people walks through that porthole but find some little thing to get some little burst of goodness or emotion of some description. And above that then I have a fairy fort where the fairies live, and there's another tunnel in that. So within, I suppose, 16 acres or that around, I have a few different sacred sites, and they have been appearing there. The Banshee, the guys here from Belfast heard the Banshee last night.
Right.
And it's not just me saying it, they're sitting here beside me, they can vouch for it as well. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm used to hearing these things. This is the difference. I'm as used to hearing Banshees as you are listening to traffic, you know?
So
I
about a
won't
Banshees.
I won't get up out of my bed to look at a banshee or a fairy or anything. If I'm in bed, I'm in bed. I am not getting up because I'm used to it.
Yeah. So a Banshees positive energy or negative energy?
Look at, sure, I suppose all supernatural things was portrayed as negative. And the banshee was associated with death. But death isn't so bad at all. It's how you die that counts. And in the olden days, people would be dying from cancers or, I'd say, some major illnesses, and they had no medicines. And you could be 3 weeks dying and
Oh, we'll have to hope that Pat comes back. I'll just put that cairn back up again. Don't know if you guys have cairns over there, but I love spotting a bump in the land. When you're driving through the countryside, you can often see these bumps that just are not natural, and you know that they're man-made and there for a reason. Wrapped crazy. I was always taught fairies were good and the gremlins were supposedly bad. Well, I always thought, there must always be a balance, though, I guess, of good and bad, surely. But I hope we can get Pat back on. This is another area of his land. Maybe I should get a little video up to show you where he's at. Let's see if I can find it. I've never had this happen before. What have we got here? I will just play this until, well, hopefully we'll get Pat back.
Noone, I'm farming here in Kilconnell for about, let's say, 40 years. I farm a mixed farm here.
Hang on.
I have sucklers, sheep and horses. I also have a fairy field here. A lot of people comes here to see the fairies in this field and get great experiences here. I have the porthole here to the fairy world here where the black thorn meets the white thorn. Some people goes in here to get great experiences of peace, joy. Some people finds emotions here. But everyone gets some little experiences of something. Some people gets great healings here. To speak normal English to me, that's the only language I have. I'd love to speak Gaelic, but I don't know how to speak Gaelic, but they will speak any language you want to speak. A lot of people ties bits of material here as a thank you or a wish to the fairies. That's what it's here for. I generally give them pieces of rushes from now on. I don't give them any more cloths because the whole place was covered in cloths, but just a thank you or a wish you. The fairy portholes was made famous by the likes of Yeats, was one man that experienced it and had gone with the fairies. I do get great inspirations when I go in here about when to sell livestock, and that's only just for the farming end of it now. Just to know when to sell and be ahead and thank God this year I obeyed them. I'm well ahead before the lockdown. Believe in it. Of course I believe in it. It has helped me in farming a lot. I do a lot of land healings for people as well. A lot of people would buy stock off me here to get into stock and see could they get a bit of the look that rubs off me. A guy from America came in here 2 years ago. He was a Puritan. He wanted me to do land healings in America. I was flown out to America to do land healings on up through New England. I do land healings from people that the land is cursed and has no look. I will bring back the look to them. I do get photographs. People just ring me from as far away as Scotland, Wales and England if they're doing land reclamation or doing anything.
Hopefully, we've got you back.
Back again. I'm sorry, the power got me.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Technology is not one of our great things.
It's no problem. I'm glad you came back.
It's a bit of a letdown for you, I know.
No, don't worry about it. I played a bit of your video. Pardon?
Yes, well, I'm lucky I have a whiz kid from Belfast here that's able to put me going again, you know?
Yeah, sending my thanks to the guys there from Belfast.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's a great girl. She's a great girl.
Excellent. So where were we at? The fairies. Have you got some natural abilities, Pat, or with the healing that you do on there, or are you getting this from the land?
I've natural abilities. I suppose if you go back 100 and 200 years ago, the likes of me and our people were called fairy doctors. You know, but who wants to be associated with doctors these days, you know? So we were medicine people, I suppose. So we were called, you know?
Yeah. And we were talking earlier about how the land, how there's energy, good energy, natural energy coming off the land.
There is there's great natural energy in it. It's built on a massive ley line as well, and I suppose the guys that built the curtain on it and the other structures knew that before we knew it, because they were more in tune with ley lines and stars and all that than we were. They had the ability to do it, you know.
So the standing stones that you've got on there, are they connected to the ley lines as well?
Standing stones. Yes, they are. I have a standing stone. One standing stone there, it has an eagle's head on it, you know. And I suppose eagles are synonymous with magic. The American dollar has the eagle on it. The Nazis had an eagle on it, and the Queen of England's palace is surrounded by eagles. So eagles and magic goes hand in hand together. And then I have the fertility stone in the same field, which is a great thing. It's a great benefit to the people around the area, around the world, because I do have people, at least two people a month and maybe more, coming to the fertility stone. I have emails thanking me for it and all that if I wanted to show them as well, you know. And I suppose fertility stones was more than what we think it as. You had fertility of the land, and you had fertility of crops, you had fertility of life itself, and now people is coming looking for partners on it as well, you know. So it's a broader thing, you know.
So are there any other? Go on. Sorry, Pat.
It's not just down to one thing, you know. The fertility of land, I suppose, and all that is as important as anything, you know. So I think that covers that end of it, you know. But there is great, and I do the healings on people when they come as well, and when they go to visit the stone, I do the healings on them, and it all goes hand in hand. you know.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
yeah, it's a blessing to have it on our land, on our properties.
Yeah. How far out does it spread? I mean, is it just within your land? Is there stuff going on around you?
Well, I suppose the way I can answer that is I only go and find it in my own property. I have enough to do. And if you go back to the 17th and 1800s, or maybe before that, the 1300s, when there was a monastery in Kilconnell, the Franciscan friars in it, they used to have a little house on the property as a healing house back then, which still exists as an old structure there. And they recognised it as well because they were fierce clever. They were going with whatever they could prolong their lives with and make it better as well. They were ruling by fooling the ordinary citizen, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to where the energy was and where the healing was as well. And
Wow.
I think today people comes, and it's not just me saying it, most people finds this great energy surge in their bodies and greatness that's in it. I don't want to be blowing my own trumpet too much because I don't believe in that sort of a thing. You know, I don't believe. And I was lucky enough to have a visit from one of your royals in England here that stayed with us and that sort of a thing. You know, and got a letter from the palace thanking me. And there's all sorts of people comes here. All
Wow.
sorts.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong in it if it's, helping people, even if you
No,
don't
it's
know
a
what.
good thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's a good thing. I didn't really stop here now during the COVID at all. Like, a lot of healers got paid by the government over this side just to stop working, you know. They got some kind of a monetary gain. I didn't take it. I said, look, if you're a healer, you might as well help people. And if you're not, get out of it fully. If money is able to stop you doing it today, it'll stop you doing it tomorrow. And I kept going there. I was never as busy with people coming and going. And I even went visiting elderly people that couldn't come to me or was afraid to come with the law because they didn't want to break the law because they thought that pensions would be taken off them and scaremongering. I used to go hit off here in the evenings in the car and I do the healings on them, you know. So
Wow.
I think that answers that.
Yeah, definitely. What's the I saw you were doing something with the rods, the copper rods. What are you doing with that? How is that working?
We do divine as well for water and we do divine for everything. And I do look at it. I can ask the rods for different things, you know. I can ask them things. Will the fairies allow me into the porthole? And would they mind I bringing in people? And the rods will answer me yes or no. Then sometimes they'd say no, and that's the way it is, you know.
Mm-hmm. So I know lots of people are going to ask, how do you get into a portal? Would describe it. What is it? Is it just a place where you feel, or a physical place?
There is it's an energy source as well. It's a huge energy source. People will generally, when they go in there, they see different things. Some people sees bright lights. Some people hears the she wind, the wind. More people finds great inner peace. This great inner peace that people is striving to find every day. And I think that's what most people finds is this great inner peace for the 5 or 6 minutes that to stand in this porthole.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's as much as I can tell. And the fairies appeared and disappeared down into it when we seen them. You know, it's not just me seeing them, the kids seeing them as well. And different people. There's different people have seen them. people has got afraid, more people hasn't. And I think that's the long and the short of it, you know.
So, can you describe the fairies? Do they
The
come in all
fairies,
different shapes and
the fairy,
sizes?
yeah, the fairies is images on ourselves. They're the same image as yourself. And I seen my small one here. She was only 6 at the time. I seen her up onto the fairy fort where I was feeding sheep, and she seen them. And when she came back, I said, "What did you see?" And they were only her size. So, and they're shifters as well. They come in the shape of a weasel or a stoat, and a hare was their two favourite animal shifters, animal shape shifters, you know. And I suppose the hare is synonymous with magic, and the weasel is synonymous with magic as the stoat, because they carry away their dead to be buried, and the hare really has a pouch that brings the young going around as well. So it's a kind of a, they're magical animals as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah. There's a comment in the chat and something I thought of. I mean, when you talk about shape shifting, people might think about them trying to deceive you. Are they just jokers, or why do they come in different forms?
Well, I suppose the handiest way to answer this is, and just in case we get cut off, the fairies went in partnership with humans thousands of years ago, when humans came into this country of Ireland, you know. And as humans do, we tricked the fairies, but the fairies kept the magic and a lot of their medicines. So the fairies can move around in different shapes, and they can trick you very handy.
Right.
But the fairies held on to the magic. The held on to the magic. The fairies held the magic, which we didn't get as humans, which we strive to get today. Everyone I meet is looking for that bit of magic.
What is that? I mean, do you still have a little bit of it with your healing? Do you call that a bit of magic? Is it when we
I'd
go
say
back
so.
to our,
Yes, I'd
yeah?
say so. There is. It's unexplainable, so there has to be magic in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Something maybe
unexplainable.
everybody's got, but it's just tuning into it.
It's just, I suppose, what can I say? Getting the right levers to lever it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's the word, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose all cultures have something of magic, and
Yeah.
it had been lost, and I don't know how it had been lost. It had been taken away from people, what was worse, you know. Because certain people only wanted it, and certain people only wanted the healings for themselves. They didn't want ordinary citizens to have it, you know.
Well, that's kind of been always, hasn't it? Those with the power maybe like to control who has it. Some
Absolutely.
anyway.
Absolutely, it's a power grab, you know. It's a power grab, but we have it here anyway, and you know what? We love sharing it with people, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's a
Is it?
great it's a great gift to have. It's a great gift. I suppose it's a gift like music or writing, or that, you know. It's one of these great things that you have.
How do you cattle get on with it? Do they get anything from it?
Yeah, well, I've a kind of fairly healthy cattle. Now, look at, on saying that, you could go out and find a cow dead too. You know what I mean? Nothing lives forever. But in the run of things, they're fairly good. I'm getting a fair good run of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they enjoy it, because I have a yew tree that's grown on the land and you uses very poisonous to animals. And my cattle goes up and licks the U3 and scratches off it. And I have never lost any animals from it yet, anyway.
No, it's the berries, isn't it? I think the berries are supposed to be the
Yeah, and
poison
the bark of it as well.
on the back as well.
Yeah, the bark is very poisonous.
You do have some interesting trees up there. You have a lot of ash trees, is it, up there?
Yeah, I have a few different trees in it. Look at, I have whitethorn trees there, that's fairy trees that grows to be about 500 years old.
Wow.
I have a couple of dozen of them. Then I have an ash tree that's 1,000 years old, and I have a horse chestnut tree that grows without any trunk that fell over 100 years ago, and it grows along the ground. You know.
Yeah, that's
So
incredible.
I have a few different trees there. That's really really interesting, you know.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I suppose I have a little lake there as well beside it, and I have a little Cranogden in that as well, where there used to be a house one time. And there is a few different things. I don't really see them because look at, I'm there every day, you know.
Yeah. You're used to it now, I guess.
I'm used to it, you know. But at the same time, I get great inspiration by going in there, you know, and going around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope to do up the old house where the monks was one time as a healing house, and for healers and for artists and writers, if I ever get enough money together.
Yeah. Well, it's always money, isn't it?
Yeah, so well, I suppose with 4 youngsters, it's not easy to have money, you know.
No.
No, they're
We've got
always.
a question. We've got a question from the chat, Mr. Lee 3PO. Pat, do you have regular encounters with them? You're just seeing it all the time, are you?
Yeah, I don't. I suppose regular. Yes, I do. Yes, I can safely say yes, I do. Yeah, I get great inspiration and regular encounters with them. Yes, I do.
Okay. If anyone's got questions, put them in caps, will you, please? Some people, I mean, how does religion come into this at all?
No, that's the one thing that doesn't come into it. It breaks all religious strands because look at, I suppose, the religions we know in England and Ireland, which has caused terrible strife in my country anyway, is a Middle Eastern religion. You know, Catholicism and that, you know, it came in from the Middle East. Before that came, we were landed people, we were druids, people of medicine, off the land, by the land. And the Irish, I suppose, well, I only speak for the Irish, we have a great connection with the land. You know, we talked about the land, we fought for the land, and the only thing worth dying for is land. You know, it's land is where we came from, and land is where we're going back to, whether we like it or not. And it feeds us every day, and that dark black soil that's you're standing is full of life and thousands of lives that we will never see. But the healing that's in that is unreal.
Mm. Yeah.
So, like, it's the obsession with land, I suppose, with the Irish anyway. I suppose my generation and before me, we were really obsessed with it. But I suppose the younger crowd now, they're going away from the land because look, they have easier lives than cities and whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. So what was the other thing I was looking at on the fairy fort? Well, what's the fairy fort?
The fairy fort, I suppose, has a lot of mystical things about fairy forts. Now in Ireland, there is about 70,000 fairy forts in Ireland, and a lot of them doesn't have any power or significance at all. But I'm lucky enough to have one on my property that's built on the leylands. So when you go into that fort, you will find a buzzing in your head with the power of energy that's in it. And that alone is enough to wake you up. And the fairies lives in the fairy fort, and I have a tunnel in mind. Some of it has collapsed, and that was called the womb of the world. They have appeared there on a lot of occasions, not just to me, but to other people. And that fairy fort is synonymous with a white woman appearing in it. Now,
Right.
I haven't seen the white woman in the last year or two, but people that came here to me has seen her. So she will show herself to certain people, and certain people she won't. And I think it's a great little mystery to have there. You know, it's a grand thing to have. You know, as a mystery.
Yeah. I guess nothing
Will she
surprises you
appear?
now.
Or will she appear, or won't she appear? You know, that's. And even myself, I do be always, if I'm alone on the thing, will she appear or won't she appear? You know, and you'd always know that there's something around you. You can feel this great presence. Even if you don't see anything, you'll feel this great presence. So you will.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. I'm going to definitely pop over at some point because you're not that far from me. I've got another question. Hi, Troy. Thank you for the super chat. Have you or anybody else in your family history ever had a bad experience with the fairies on your farm?
No, I never had a bad experience, or anyone of our family either. We always had great experiences with them. Experiences of, I suppose, we were never poor, but we were never rich either. We always managed to get over the top of the hill, as the fella says, you know. And we'd always be able to move cattle at the right time, just before prices fell. We'd always have that little connection to move on the right time. A lot of farmers would often ring me up and say, "Do you think would it be the right time to sell?" Because I'd be kind of known as a man that'd be moving stock, that there'd be something going to happen. Now, a lot of the times that works. Maybe it mightn't work all the time, but it has worked for me anyway.
Yeah. Well, if it works. Thanks for answering that. I've got another one here from Peter Birdsall. I don't know what you think about this. Pat, do you believe there's a connection between sacrificial blood sites, known or unknown, that the unnatural twisted look of some trees there reflects the violent past? I think...
Sure, look at, sure, like, it's easy answer, I suppose, that in some things. Get me any culture that hasn't violence in some form, you know. Every culture, no matter where they come from, has started out as violence at some stage. Some war had started out. There isn't a family in the world but hasn't fallen out among themselves over a pair of shoes. So, like, to say that you'll see it, but in parts of this country, I suppose, and I'll only speak for myself, you will come on patches of land where there had been a lot of bloodletting, a lot of ancient battles, a lot of sacrifices, and they need to be pacified and cleared. But any ancient culture has had battles and that. Does that answer your question, or?
Well, let me know, Peter, but I think so. And of course, we know you don't have the answers to everything. It's just what we think. If we had the answers, I'm sure we'd all be rich. to a lot of these questions. But there's one here from Strangeland. Pat, do you have any ancient, might not say it right, Oham writing on stone or around your property? Any engravings, anything like that?
There is one stone that has a kind of an ogman in it, all right. But it's only lines. It's only lines that's cut in. It's not rightness, so it's just straight lines.
Right,
So,
okay.
yeah, there is. I can say there is, yeah, there is.
Okay. Now, did I miss one of these questions? Do you get any gifts from the fairies? Do they leave anything? Do you leave anything for them?
Yeah, a lot of people leave stuff for them. I have crystals from all over the world brought here. I do leave them gifts. I would get them some whiskey now on the longest day, the 21st of June. I will give them some whiskey and some turf and a few little things like that, and maybe again in November, And throughout the year, you'd always throw them, whatever it be in season, apples or oats and different things like that,
Yeah.
So, yeah, we would gift them stuff.
Now, this question. Someone's asking, do you speak Gaelic? It's Gary. Hi, Gary.
Unfortunately, I don't speak Gaelic. I left school at 14.
Right.
And I don't have that education of the book, as the fella says. And I'd love to have speaking Gaelic. My mother was a fluent Gaelic speaker. But when I was going to school, we had a Gaelic teacher, and he was almost a priest. He went for the priesthood, but he balked on the last year, and he was a pure tyrant. He would stay baiting you to learn Irish. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't learn Irish for him. I went against him and his beliefs, as the fella says.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned me off Irish at that stage. Although I'm a big Irish man, I'm known as a big Republican around these areas here. And it's a regret that, and it's something that if I won the lottery, I would definitely pay a tutor to learn me Irish in between me fly fishing episodes. So, that'd be my dream for winning the lottery.
Yeah. So is it used a lot there then? Is it everywhere or just in areas?
The Gaelic, it's. I suppose west of me in Connemara was known as a Gaelic speaking area. And I suppose even in parts of Dublin, and even in Protestant areas in the north, I do have contacts with them. There's people learning Gaelic there as well. So it's not dying out, but anything that's not a working language will die out, because everything is done with the form of English now, and I suppose that's the way it's going to be. It's going to be a minority, like, no matter whether we like it or not,
Yeah.
But then I suppose another answer to that question, Irish music and that and Irish dancing was down very low as well, and the likes of Michael Flatley took it to the world stage, and he brought it to the four corners of the world, and everyone was dancing. Blacks, whites, everyone was at it. So someone could do that again. It could, like, with 800 years of oppression from the English, it hadn't killed it.
Mm.
It stuck around. It was a living language. And I don't think it's going to die. I think it'll take something of a magnitude like Flatley or someone like that that'll take it on, because governments hasn't got a clue about teaching Irish language, or anything like that. They're teaching it formally, which no one is going to understand, or no, they're kind of telling you have to do it. So most people is not going to listen to government. But I think if you got the likes of Michael Flatley or some of those guys that's in the entertainment business that'll flick it, and if they only spoke a few words of it, you'd bring the youth with you. And if you bring the youth with you, you have it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it would be a great thing to learn, wouldn't it? And to keep using, just because it's there, and a beautiful language as well. It's a shame to let it go.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
living thing. It's a living language. It's a living language. It won't die that quick. It won't die that quick. But it's going down. It's going down. It's going down rapid. Because our education system is static. It hasn't moved for the last 100 years since we took over an education system from the British. We have never modernized it. And we're still talking nonsense about education. It's not the education we should have. It's more like we're talking against our cultures, you know, kind of ashamed of our cultures, ashamed of our lands, and until we knock that on the head, we're going nowhere, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we should be learning life skills, social skills at school. I think when you're a kid, that those things that you take with you through life, rather than a bit of geography or history, it feels like we sometimes are not learning the right things to start us off in life. But that's just me, you know. I think there's a lot of pressure on kids, forced to take options that they might not necessarily want, and we're not
That's
always ready.
I suppose that's the conglomerate society we're living in with banks and big drug companies. The influences now. It's not you have no more. Let's say the British Army or the American Army or the French Army. They're come minuscule at this stage. It's we're influenced by real banks and mortgage holders and bond holders and crooks of that sort, you know.
Yeah, well, there's
Their
plenty of them about.
influences, they're influencing kids, you know, and that. But yeah, but I suppose that's it. There isn't. But I hope that interview was not too bad for you now. Anyway,
We're nearly up. We're nearly done. Don't want to keep you
good
for too
stuff.
long, but we're nearly done.
No.
Um,
Well, shoot me another few questions before you go. Think of
got
something.
another. We've got another few questions. Why do you think Ireland is so prevalent to have the fae there, or are you hearing about them in other places as much as you know, like having hotspots like you have?
There is hotspots in England. There is hotspots in Scotland. I do get phone calls from people as far away as the Highlands in Scotland. If they're doing up a farm and the next thing I get a phone call, there's a bush or a tree in the way. Would I recognise it as a fairy tree that they might have to go around? In Wales, in England as well. A lot of people in England, they're in tune with the land as well. So do you know what I mean? I know you have massive farms, but there's a lot of small holders there that do ring me. That's where a lot of my time goes in the evening. People will be sending me on photos of trees and in WhatsApp, and do I recognise this as a fairy tree and what would they do with it? And you know, there is hotspots. There is, of course, there is to be sure.
Yeah,
You know,
that's fair enough. I think Strangeland is in here tonight. He's in Newfoundland, and I said before, interesting stuff going on over there too. So we'll end with this last question from Eulalio Rodriguez. How you doing? Pat, can fairies be helpful to humans when humans are in trouble? And a second question, are there fairies in the world to protect the forest and environment, or are any other beings or living creatures doing that?
well, I suppose the fairies was protectors of the land for thousands of years. And I'm only speaking now about Ireland here and my own district, as the fella says. People had a fear of the fairies, so they wouldn't disturb the land. They wouldn't cut down ancient trees or destruct old forts or that. But as time starts to move on, the younger farmers is brought into an education system where they're told, don't worry about that, that's only old malarkey. And this has been destruction done. But yes, the fairies protected the land, protected our ancient structures from, I suppose, everything. Even the English invaders that came here. And I suppose there was a big battle up above in Auckland, which is about 5 miles from me. And I like to visit old places like that. But the English wouldn't even put their cannons in the fairy fort to shell. And they knew the value of that. Do you know what I mean? They had respect as well, although they were a
Yeah.
conquering army.
Mm.
So, yeah, they are the fear kept the land sacred. The fairies kept the land sacred with fear.
Yeah.
Fear
There was
is the thing that kept it going, yeah.
yeah. And plus there was a lot more stock back then in what people believed in and beliefs, and we stuck more to the folklores, the things like that than maybe we do nowadays, generally.
Well, we had no other choice. We had no other choice them times because people had no modern medicine. They couldn't go to the doctor for a prescription of pills. They had to come to the likes of me for a healing. If they were bleeding to death, they'd ring the likes of me up to come to me and I'd stop the bleeding. And if I have a cure for the burdens and different things, so if you needed to live, you needed to practice these things, and respect the people that had them.
Yeah, definitely. One more. This was asked twice. A fairy mound's a thing. I'm not sure what a fairy mound is, but have you heard of them?
I'm lucky enough to have one in the farm, the fairy fort. We call it a fort. Some people call it a mound.
Right. Okay.
I'm lucky enough to have it. I'm lucky enough to have it on the farm. I'm lucky enough to have it. I call it a fort, and I suppose other people call it a mound.
Got you. Okay, we're on the same page then. And maybe just to clear this up for everybody, leprechauns, elves, fairies, are they all the same thing? Or are they all different?
Look at the fairies is big around this part of the country, and there is leprechauns, but they wouldn't be around here, I suppose. Up north of our country here, up in County Louth and places like that, there is leprechauns up there. Now, I have never seen leprechauns. I only seen the fairies, but there is other people have seen leprechauns, and different things and that,
Yeah. One last question, if you don't mind, Pat.
No problem.
Thank you. What would one make of seeing little feet run through leaf litter on the floor, and yet the two-legged maker of the prince was invisible to the eyes? Can they appear invisible?
Oh yes, they can appear. They're always invisible.
Okay.
It's only certain times that they show themselves. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're there. Not there. Invisibility is one of the greatest things the fairies has. Is the invisibility. If you look at Gorbals or whatever you call that Nazi leader that went around the world looking for the invisibility. He had come to Scotland and Ireland looking for that magic, and some people say he got it. And that's where the invisibility of the stealth planes came from. It took the Americans 50, 60 years to decipher that. He had thousands of books on it. And I don't know, but there must be something in it, because he was looking for this invisibility in the 1940s or 30s, you know,
Yeah.
and he knew it existed. What was even more, and it exists today as well, this invisibility. They can appear and non-appear, you know.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So
Um,
it
so
is
one last.
interesting. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well,
If people want to connect to fairies, what can we do? What can anybody do?
well, I suppose if you go to ancient places in England and Ireland, there's bound to be fairy cultures around it, because the people that built the likes of Stonehenge, and I'm just mentioning that because everyone knows it, you know, they had to have experienced fairies, and the fairies had been around that place, and they used the magic there to shift them stones. So I hope that answers that to you, like, but I think that's as good of answers I'm going to get now, anyway.
Yeah, well, that'll do us. Look, Pat, I really appreciate you coming on tonight and telling us a bit about your beautiful place. I'll put a link in the description so people know where to find you. And I know a lot of people are across the pond, but if you ever come over, definitely go to Ireland anyway, because it is a beautiful place. But Pat Noone's place sounds absolutely fascinating, and I hope one day I might come over and visit you. But thank you again, Pat. I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Well, thanks for having me on. And look, you have my number. Give me a ring anytime if you ever want healings or anything or help, and I'll help you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Pat. I appreciate that. Thanks to everyone in the chat. I'll see you back here tomorrow night for Anything Goes with Jason. But until then, everyone, have a good night and stay safe. Bye-bye.